Today I'll be demonstrating how you can press and starch your uniform for an awesome look. If you own one of these lightweight uniforms that have the printed back on them, one thing that you want to be really careful about is you want to make sure that you're not ironing over the printed part on the back. So that is heat sensitive. If you iron on it, it will either come off on the iron or it'll come off on your ironing board, or you'll just like smear it all around and kind of mess up the back. So make sure you don't iron that spot. If it's super wrinkly in there, you can go ahead and just chuck it in the dryer for a minute to let it kind of shake out some of those big wrinkles, and then we'll press the rest of it and we'll have it looking sharp in no time. The great thing about the lightweight ones is they do press up really quickly and easily, and they look really nice. The leadership ones, they take a little bit more time. The heavyweight ones, they take more time to press and starch those. However, those ones tend to hold their creases. If you've done a good job of pressing and starching it, it'll actually come out of the dryer with the creases still in the sleeve and pant leg. So it's kind of like you've trained the uniform a little bit, and it'll stay that way. And you still will want to iron it and starch it and freshen it up, but you kind of have a base layer to begin with. Where the lightweight ones, pretty much you're starching it or you're pressing it, and it doesn't really have a crease to begin with most of the time. So we want to have an iron that has steam. A high heat is good. I like to always make sure mine is full of water because I use a lot of steam for mine. It just helps to work out the wrinkles more quickly and just smooth everything out, make it really nice. So I'm going to just start with the top. Start with it right on inside here. This one I already kind of ironed a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and just start starching. Some ironing tips though, if you haven't handled an iron much before, I understand. I don't really iron things a lot. My iron is the dryer. So literally the only thing that I hardly ever iron is a taekwondo uniform. But I do like to look really sharp, especially when I have an event that I'm going to. So anyway, when you are ironing, you can hold the iron down for a certain amount of time, and then it kind of needs to like breathe. Just come up, see that little puff of steam that comes up there? Yeah, they just, irons don't like to be left there for too long. And even if you have a really tough wrinkle in that, you never want to hold the iron in a single spot for too long. You always want to keep it moving across the fabric. And then just occasionally let it come up for air. Okay? So quick tips, never leave your iron down like this resting when it's turned on, or really at all. Just always have a habit that you stick it on its end. You make sure it's sitting nice so it doesn't flip off your ironing board if things move a little bit. Okay? Parents, I think this is a great thing for kids to do for themselves, but they are going to need some supervision and training on how to use the iron and the ironing board and everything safely, how to make sure that it cools down before they put it away and all those things before you turn them loose to do this for themselves. But I absolutely think it's a great thing for them to take pride in working on their own uniform and making it look nice. Plus, then you don't have to slave over your laundry room and your ironing board to make them look nice for testing it. All right, so starch. When I heard oh, we starch our uniforms, I was like, well, how does that work? I'm picturing like cornstarch and you're like sprinkling it on there or something. It sounded really messy and terrible. Starch is a liquid that comes in a spray can. You get it in the laundry section in the store. Some of my favorite starch is the like I tend to get at the dollar store. They have really good starch there for some reason. Don't get the Niagara brand, that kind of doesn't work at all. But if it's this Faultless Heavy Hold, this one's pretty decent. I like the Magic starch. Usually that works pretty well too. So you're just gonna spray a light layer over the top of it here, and then iron it in. You kind of want to iron it until you don't see the little sprinkles of the spray so much. You can always do multiple layers. I go over mine with kind of a light layer quick, just real quick first. And then if I want to make it extra fancy, I might go over it again. I like my uniform to be really stiff and crisp. It looks super sharp, and it gives you a little extra pop out of the sleeve and the pant leg when you're doing your techniques. So it gives even more of that impression of kind of speed and power in your technique. So that's how we do. We do a little spray, we go over it, and we kind of work that starch in there a little bit. We don't want to put tons of starch and just load it up and then try to iron it. What's going to happen is the starch will just kind of flake off of there. It doesn't hurt anything if it does that, but it takes forever to like get it to set into there because you just make the uniform really wet. So I'm just working in there a little at a time. There we go. And then, all right, you get the idea on that. The sleeves are a little bit more tricky. This is a good one to show you because it hasn't really gotten a good crease. I want to fold it so that this seam, there is the seam on the kind of bottom of the sleeve here. It's laying nice and flat, and then that whole thing is laying flat. So this one, as you can see, this actually the shoulder seam is right here. That's not where I'm folding it because that's not actually where it lines up with the sleeve. So you just have to kind of follow how the uniform is stitched so that it lays nice and flat. So we're going to lay that down now. On the sleeves, they're a little tougher because you're going through 2 layers. So you want to make sure that neither layer has any wrinkles underneath that you're going to set in on that like underneath layer. So quick press of that. And throw a little starch on there. Now this part, this is where you start to get those creases I was talking about. So when I go on the sleeve edge here, I kind of use a little bit more pressure. I find that using pressure and putting like the tip of the iron right on the edge of the seam and kind of slowly working it up and down there, and coming out onto the sleeve, coming back over to the edge. Okay, and this is where you're going to have some layers of starch. You might add a little extra in the sleeves. And then I'm also going to do that shoulder seam, or that shoulder right where it comes up from the sleeve. I'm going to make a little crease on the top of the shoulder there. Now it's not quite as noticeable, but I just like it kind of carries the whole line of that sleeve crease all the way up. So a little starch, a little pressure on there. Then you got to flip it and do the other side. Be careful to make sure you line up that crease so that you're ironing the same spot. You're not like moving the crease when you turn it over. A little extra attention for that crease. Really work it in there. Again, make sure you keep the iron moving. A lot of people that don't iron things a lot seem to really want to like sit there in one spot and like hold it down. It's not really where you use the iron to its best advantage, and not so great for the fabric. So we want to keep it moving, get that shoulder crease going as well. Okay, and then we have this razor sharp crease on here. That looks pretty nice. Tough to show that in this light. Oh, there we go. So you see this really beautiful looking crease there. And it just kind of adds that little extra something to your presentation. To me, when I see somebody at a testing or a tournament and they have a really well presented uniform, that just shows that extra kind of planning and attention to detail, that they cared about their appearance and they took some time ahead of time to think about what would present really well. It just demonstrates a lot of respect for yourself and for what you're doing when you have a nice uniform. So we're going to repeat that on the other sleeve. The pants are basically going to be the same as the sleeve edge. We want to give some extra attention to really pressing into that crease. I like to see just how sharp I can make the crease, how much I can make it really come to a point and stick out. That's what I like. I like the feel of that. Same thing for the pant leg. The more you can just give that smooth texture with a nice crease on the side is going to make you really stand out and look sharp. So that's just a little bit about pressing and starching a uniform. next time you show up at a testing or a tournament, I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what you look like in that awesome uniform. Oh, one more thing. Thinking about as I fold this up is the best way to make sure that it stays looking nice after you finished it. My go-to used to be I just kind of very carefully bring it to kind of hold from the shoulders, bring it together, keep those creases on the top, hold the sleeve down, and then I kind of drape it over the couch like this. Same thing for the pants. I just kind of like drape them carefully over like this. And then if I was going to travel with these and not be wearing them to whatever place I'm going, I just throw them in a garment bag so that they stay clean and well pressed. So they're on a hanger. That's usually the best way to make sure that your uniform is going to look nice when you need it to look nice, and not like, oh, it looked really great at home, and then you got there, and because you sat on it in the car, you got like wrinkles on the pants. It'll still look nice. We'll still be able to tell you pressed it. But that really great presentation is like put the uniform on right before, right as you get to the event. That's like the very best way to make sure that it looks really awesome. There's some tips for you. I hope that helps. I can't wait to see what you guys can do with that.